stories. Dozens of homes in the Joe Slovo informal settlement in Cape Town have been razed to the ground. Hundreds of people have now been left homeless after helplessly watching their homes go up in flames on Saturday night. Newzroom Afrika's Athi Mtongana is there and joins us live for more on the story. Athi, a very good morning to you. Very devastating to have your belongings vanish, go up in flames. What's the latest on the ground?
Well, Paul, the latest on the ground is really residents trying to pick up the pieces and trying to find what's left following that fire that ravaged this particular informal settlement in Langa. It's called Joe Slovo, and what we know at the stage is that about 300 shacks were burnt to the ground last night, and residents tell us that the fire started on the far right-hand side from where I'm standing, and I want my colleague then to show you what residents are up to this morning. They're trying to collect what is left of their belongings. Many of them were able to move their belongings before the fire got to some of their homes, but obviously others who weren't able to get home in time to collect their belongings have lost everything. Many of them saying to me they've lost their fridges, their home appliances, their clothes, their ID documents, very important other various documents that they kept in their homes. So those are the kind of things that they have lost. And we know in the Western Cape every single year there's always a massive shack fire that takes place, and one of the issues then that the city of Cape Town has to look at is the reason behind some of these fires. We know in previous other massive shack fires, what has been looked at and what has been found to be the cause in some instances is someone leaving a candle unattended or a stove unattended, sleeping and then leaving it overnight, and that's how some of these fires spark and begin and affect the rest of the other homes around that one particular shack where perhaps a stove would have been left unattended. But I want then residents to talk to me about this fire and how it started. Sisi, you might not necessarily know about uqale lo mlilo njengoba ubusitsho, but talk to us about where you were and what you have lost.
Umlilo uqale hokini eyi-1 right apha ngaphambili kunathi njengoba abantu begcwele ngaphayana. So siphakamile sabe sesingakwazi ukuba silentuze siwulwe kuba ihoki zixinene. Le indawo yami le ebendihlala kuyo. So asikwazanga ukuziprotecta emlilweni, but ke isukuvela asikeva nqa kuba kuthiwa kusweleke umuntu okanye kukho umuntu otshileyo. Okwangoku sawucela urhulumente abesinceda uba ngaba unayo indlela. Unoba kukusiklinela okanye siphathele amazinki okokutsha sibe nendawo yokuhlala. Ndiyabulela sisi.
Uyaqala ukwenzeka lo mlilo apha niwazi eqale njani, even though ke kungekabi khonto ebhaliweyo formally, but uyaqala ukwenzeka lo mlilo apha and nikrokrela uba uye waqala njani apho aqale khona.
Lo mlilo sisuqale kwenye ihoki ibiphaa sabe sisuka kwalaza siyothenga isonka then ke sabe sesikhwaza abahlali bazama ucima but ke ngokuba ebehlulakala sisi kuthiwa umntana ebefudumeza but ke animazi bungakanani. So iye anjalo ke mntasekhaya.
Niziva njani ngoba ngoku aninazi impahla, izinto zenu zitshile, izindlu zitshile, so niziva njani?
Yo sikuhlungu kakhulu sisi, sikuhlungu, siyavuya kakhulu urhulumente angasinika loo nto asinika yona because kubi ukuthi asinakwanto sineze sesifune qha. Siyacela urhulumente makazame kangangoko kubi kuthi. Siyacela sisi please.
Thank you so much, Mama. Just to loosely translate what these two ladies are saying, they're basically saying that they've lost their homes and that they are not sure how the fire started. But this other lady is saying there are suspicions that the fire started when a young boy was warming up something in a microwave, perhaps. And of course, authorities will be looking at the cause of the fire. But that's what we're hearing from residents as preliminary causes of the fire. They've lost everything. They've lost their documents. They've lost their home appliances, as I've said before. And they are pleading with authorities to come and assist them with at least material to be able to rebuild their home. So what will be needed, of course, is to try and remove the burnt material so that they can try to level this particular land so that they can be able to rebuild their homes. And also what we know is that over 1,000 people here have now been left homeless. Many of them have gone to various other homes around Langa where their relatives stay to seek refuge. Many of them don't know where they'll be sleeping in the next coming days.
Athi, have we heard of any reports of injuries and fatalities after this devastating fire?
Fortunately, no injuries have been reported and no deaths have been reported. All we can report at the stage is the loss of over 300 homes, which now has affected over 1,000 people who are living in this Joe Slovo informal settlement in Langa.
And very lastly, before we let you go, Athi, you make mention, and we hear some of the victims of this fire speaking to the desperation, pleading on government to offer some form of assistance. What were some of the contingency plans in terms of where the families will be staying after being left destitute?
As I respond to you, Mpo, I'm going to ask my colleague Thabo Mokoena to just pan and show you what residents are up to, because I really want the visuals to speak for themselves so you can see the situation as it happens and what people are going through at this particular moment in time. We haven't heard any reports yet from the city of Cape Town in as far as what they're going to do with perhaps giving them alternative accommodation and things like that. We will then, of course, find out what authorities are planning to do. But what we know is that firefighters were here last night, and it was quite difficult for them to contain this fire. It was only contained roughly about 5 hours after it started. As another gentleman here was speaking to me, he was telling me that the fire started at around 6 in the evening last night, and firefighters were called to the scene. When they arrived, they started putting out the fire, but unfortunately it spread, and so many other residents got affected from the initial start where the fire was sparked. So authorities have not yet confirmed what they will be doing to try and assist the residents of Joe Slovo. But we do know that over 1,000 people have now been displaced. They'll be looking for places to stay this evening. Many of them, as I said, do not know where they'll be sleeping tonight. They're trying to pick up the pieces and what's left following this devastating fire that broke out on Saturday evening. Mpo.
Devastation indeed, Athi. Let's leave it there for now. Of course, as Athi was explaining, the 2 windows you saw on the screen there, a fire which broke out in the Joe Slovo informal settlement in Langa, Cape Town on Saturday night. You saw residents trying to put out the fire with buckets, and of course the fire that has now resulted in 300 shacks completely destroyed. And looking at what also happened last night, around 10 fire engines and 7 water tankers were deployed to the scene, as well as law enforcement agencies to try and assist. No fatalities, no injuries reported, and of course the look of desperation as those residents try to pick up their lives. Of course,